Hey guys, tonight we begin by slipping quietly into a long, slow evening on the banks of the Nile. Sometime around 1500 BCE, the sky above you is already a soft lavender gray, the sun dripping away behind distant date palms. You're barefoot, your linen tunic is slightly dusty, and you're chewing on the same thing you've chewed every day of your life, bread. And not just any bread. This stuff is coarse, baked with stone-ground flour that's, well, generously seasoned with flecks of sand. Your jaw works at it slowly, methodically. Crunch, crunch. Ow. There it is. That familiar faint stabbing pain from somewhere deep in your lower right molar. It's been there for weeks, maybe months, probably since you turned 16. And no, it's not going away. That, dear listener, is your reality tonight. You're an ancient Egyptian with a toothache. And spoiler alert, you probably won't survive this. Not because you'll keel over from one bad incisor, but because the infection might spread. Or maybe you'll get locked jaw from chewing too long on last week's lentil stew. Either way, your smile is in trouble. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and your local time in the comments. Let's see how far this sleepy little Nile village reaches. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're trudging home from the field, sore and sunburned teeth aching from the day's rations. You pass the temple walls, shaded and cool, and catch the scent of something baking more bread. You sigh. Bread again. In ancient Egypt, your diet is remarkably predictable. Bread, beer, onions, maybe a bit of fish if it's a festival day, but that bread, it's not soft and fluffy like modern loaves. It's hard, dense, ground with stones that leave tiny bits of grit in the mix. That means every bite is basically a slow erosion of your enamel. It's like brushing your teeth with gravel 3 times a day. Historians still argue whether this gritty bread was a deliberate trade-off or just a side effect of early milling techniques. Either way, your teeth don't love it, and honestly, neither do you. You rub your jaw absently as you cross the village square. There's a boy chasing a goat, a woman sweeping sand from her doorstep, and across the way, your neighbor Pamu is sitting in the shade with a bulging cheek and a rag pressed to his face. You give him a sympathetic nod. Toothache season is in full swing. It's not just the poor farmers like you who suffer. Even the mummies of pharaohs have turned up with horrifying dental decay. One poor royal had an abscess the size of a date pit in his upper jaw. Archaeologists found pus still trapped in the bone. Yep, that stayed preserved for 3,000 years. Sleep tight. Back in your own mud brick home, you chew slowly through your dinner, each bite a careful negotiation between hunger and pain. The beer helps. It's low alcohol, more like a porridge, but it soothes a bit. Still, as you lay back on your woven mat, you wonder, what did people used to do about this pain? Was there a solution? Spoiler, kind of. But not the kind you're hoping for. You remember stories, your grandfather talking about the temple healers and their secret recipes. He once mentioned something about bread mold and honey. You didn't believe him then. You might now. Outside frogs croak near the riverbank. The reeds whisper in the evening breeze. Inside you roll onto your side, avoiding the throbbing half of your face. Tomorrow you'll visit the scribe. Not a doctor technically, but he can read the papyri. He might have something that helps. Maybe he'll mix up one of those old remedies. Maybe it'll work. Maybe not. Either way, the bread stays moldy, the beer stays gritty, and your teeth, they're not going to thank you. But for now, you drift. Pain dulling under the weight of sleep. Nile wind brushing across your skin. Somewhere out there, another farmer is chewing his last bite for the day, wincing just like you. Welcome to ancient Egypt. Section 2. The next morning, you're up before the sun has finished, blinking over the desert hills. Your mouth tastes like stale barley and sand, and that throbbing in your jaw hasn't budged. If anything, it's worse, sharper now, pulsing behind your eye, like someone's tapping it with a chisel. You shuffle through the quiet streets toward the scribe's hut. He's the closest thing your village has to a healer, not a doctor by trade. Those are few and far between, but he's literate, clever, and more importantly, has a collection of ancient scrolls that might hold something useful. You'd prefer not to lose the tooth, even though you suspect it's already halfway gone. As you pass by the bakery, the scent of freshly charred bread drifts your way, normally comforting. Today, not so much. You give the building a weary side-eye. That smell is the cause of your misery. See, Egyptian bread isn't just bread. It's practically a dental weapon. The process of making it involves grinding wheat between two large stones, a method that, while effective, sprinkles generous helpings of quartz dust and grit into the final product. You eat that 3 times a day, every day. It's like sandpaper for your molars. Historians still debate whether the population was aware of this issue or simply resigned to it. Maybe they figured Tadeth were meant to fall out eventually. Or maybe like you, they were just too busy surviving to care. You arrive at the scribe's low, shadowed house. His name is Chati, and he's already hunched over a scroll, lips moving silently as he reads. When he sees your swollen cheek, he doesn't flinch. Instead, he waves you in muttering tooth again. You nod, easing down onto a reed mat. Chati rustles through a collection of scrolls, medical papyri, some borrowed from the temple, others copied by hand. These scrolls are a mix of what we might call rational remedies and, well, let's say deeply creative ones. You're hoping for the former. He finds a passage in the Ebers Papyrus, an ancient Egyptian medical text, older than your great-great-grandfather's bones. It details dozens of tooth treatments, some with honey, some with onion juice, and one that makes you blink twice, a poultice made from moldy bread. You raise an eyebrow. He shrugs. It draws out the bad spirits, he says. Right, spirits. But here's the twist. Modern scientists actually think this wasn't as bonkers as it sounds. Certain molds, especially the kind that grows on stale bread, left in a warm, damp Egyptian pantry, produce natural antibiotics. Long before penicillin was named, these folks may have accidentally discovered a crude form of it by smearing bread mush into infected gums. Call it ancient biohacking, or just one heck of a lucky guess. Of course, you're not thinking about penicillin. You're thinking about how disgusting it will feel to have rotting bread pressed into your open gum. But pain lowers your standards. Chati prepares the poultice, a chunk of bread left purposely to mold mashed with a bit of natron, that gritty mineral they use in mummification, and a drizzle of honey to help it stick. He wraps it in a linen scrap and gently pushes it into your mouth, tucking it near the angry tooth. It stings, you wince. He hands you a cup of beer to rinse it down. The sensation is unpleasant. It's cold and slimy and vaguely tastes like wet socks. But as you sit there, something strange happens. The pain doesn't fade, but it stops getting worse. It plateaus. You close your eyes and breathe, listening to the scribes outside chanting their morning prayers. Historians still argue whether treatments like this were based on trial and error, divine revelation, or both. Egyptian medicine always walked a line between practical and spiritual. For every moldy bread trick that might actually work, there's another that calls for rubbing donkey fat on your feet while reciting a prayer to Thoth. Still, you're grateful. Even marginal relief feels miraculous. Later, as you walk back home, with a slight tilt in your gait to avoid jostling the poultice, you notice just how many people around you are chewing cautiously. You pass a butcher gnawing on dried fish, pausing to massage his cheek, a temple guard eating dates slowly, tenderly. Pain is part of the daily rhythm here. It's hidden behind closed lips, but it's everywhere. Back at your house, your mother offers you a bit of goat cheese and a fresh round of bread. You decline the bread quietly and try not to picture the jagged stone flecks grinding into your molars. Instead, you lie down in the shade, head propped on a rolled mat mouth, half open with that gooey bread lump still in place. The Nile breeze is gentle. You can hear birds calling from the river reeds and the distant bleat of a stubborn goat. And for the first time in days, your jaw feels tolerable. Not great, but livable. You drift lulled by the heat and the soft burble of nearby water jars. Moldy bread may not be glamorous, but tonight it's the closest thing you have to a miracle. Section 3. You wake to the sound of clanging. Someone down the lane is sharpening a plow blade on stone. It's jarring metal on rock, and immediately your jaw protests. The dull ache has returned, like an unwelcome neighbor knocking too early on a rest day. The moldy bread poultice helped, sort of. You sit up slowly, stretch your back, and remove the soggy lump from your cheek. It's a little less offensive this morning, mostly dried out and crumbly now. You glance at it skeptically before flicking it toward the chickens. One pecks at it and changes its mind. Even poultry have standards. Today, you've decided to go deeper. The scribe mentioned something last night. Someone else you could talk to. A man who knows old remedies, the kind passed down before there were scrolls. Not quite a doctor, not quite a priest, but something in between. You tie on your sandals and head toward the edge of the village, where the palms grow thick. There, in a shady courtyard of stone and papyrus reeds, lives Katie, a retired scribe who used to work in the great city temples. He doesn't see patients, but he has seen everything. He greets you with a cough and a grin, his teeth stained dark from years of chewing herbs and perhaps regretting none of it. Bad tooth, he says, gesturing toward your swollen cheek. You nod. He squints at your jaw, then waves you inside. The room smells like a library that got into a fight with a spice merchant. Scrolls dried garlic, something musky you can't name. He talks while preparing something, mixing powders, grinding roots, occasionally muttering to himself. I once saw a man chew on wood bark for 7 days straight. Kitty says casually, said it distracted him from the pain. Lost half his teeth, but he was proud. You laugh kind of, then wince. He explains that in the old days, dental help came from many directions. Scribes, priests, midwives, even embalmers. Especially embalmers. You raise an eyebrow. Think about it. he says, stirring some black sticky substance in a bowl. They knew anatomy. They worked with jaws. They saw what killed people. Who better to understand what rots a tooth? Historians still argue whether embalmers truly dabbled in medicine or if they were just coincidentally surrounded by useful knowledge. But one thing's for sure, they had opinions about your teeth. He dabs a finger in the mixture and motions for you to open your mouth. You hesitate, but he looks impatient. So in it goes, a thick, clove-scented salve that tastes like earth and old socks. It burns a little, then goes numb. You blink. What's in it? Frankincense, myrrh, garlic, maybe a hint of lizard tail, he says with a shrug. Depends what you believe. That's Egypt for you. Remedies are part science, part incantation, and part improvisation. Sometimes people believed toothaches were caused by worms living in the gums, not metaphorical worms, literal tiny squirming creatures burrowing into your teeth. This idea stuck around for centuries, long after the moldy bread trick had faded. In fact, clay tablets from Mesopotamia even had tooth worm spells. Egypt likely had its own version. Kedi doesn't mention worms, but he does speak of balance, how bad teeth meant your body was imbalanced, or you had angered a deity, or maybe just chewed too loudly during temple hours. He sends you home with a small pouch of the salve and a warning not to eat anything sweet for 3 days. That's easy. You're poor. Sweetness is a festival luxury. As you walk back through the village, you think about how strange it is, how much trust you're placing in these age-old substances. But you also think about how strange modern medicine might seem in return. Pills, lasers, metal drills, at least garlic and mold, smell like something found in nature. You pass children splashing by the canals, women washing linens with crushed lotus root, and men stacking clay bricks under the sun. Life goes on, toothaches or not. That evening, you sit by the riverbank. Your jaw feels quieter, not healed, but hushed like it knows you're trying. And as the breeze picks up, stirring the papyrus stalks and carrying the faint scent of frankincense from your pouch, you let yourself hope just a little that tomorrow might be a little less sore. Section 4. That night, under the quiet hush of woven rush mats and moonlight, you dream about bread. Not the fluffy bakery window kind, but a monstrous towering loaf with gravel for flour and a jaw that bites back. You wake before dawn, with your tongue poking anxiously at the sore spot again. Still there, still sore, but just slightly less angry. The mixture from Kedi seems to be doing something. You're not sure what, but you're clinging to the smallest sign of progress, like it's a divine prophecy. Today, you decide to learn more. If you're going to suffer through this, you may as well understand what you're suffering through. So, you head to the temple, where knowledge is guarded like treasure, and sometimes accidentally shared by bored apprentices. The temple of Sobek, crocodile god, and general patron of aggressive swimming, isn't exactly the first place you'd expect to find dental guidance. But temples in Egypt serve more than one purpose. They're spiritual centers, yes, but also clinics, schools, and libraries. Medicine lives here, tucked between hymns and hymns of slightly different in phrasing. You enter quietly, head bowed, and are quickly intercepted by a novice priest who doesn't seem thrilled to see you. You mention the toothache. He sighs. This is not his department, but he leads you to a side chamber filled with scrolls, baskets of herbs, and something bubbling faintly in a ceramic pot that smells like sorrow and onions. Inside is an older priestess named Henu, sorting lotus petals into ceramic jars. She looks at you at your cheek and nods. No words needed. She's seen this before. You have a spirit trapped in your tooth, she says with surprising calm. Right, of course. According to some temple traditions, pain, especially recurring pain, was often viewed as the result of spiritual imbalance, or possession, or mischief by lesser demons. Toothaches, classic symptoms, especially when they struck suddenly without an obvious wound. Historians still argue whether these spirits were symbolic metaphors or actual beliefs. To many Egyptians, there wasn't a hard line between body and soul, so curing one meant curing the other. Henu lights a cone of incense and begins to chant softly. The scent wraps around your senses, spicy, sweet, sharp like cinnamon. Left too long in the sun, she instructs you to breathe through your nose and touch your tongue to the roof of your mouth. Something about encouraging energy flow. Or maybe it's just tradition. Then she produces something peculiar, a tiny carved amulet shaped like a lion's head. It's Sekhmet, goddess of war, case and conveniently healing. She presses the amulet against your cheek and recites a passage that translates loosely to "Come out pain. This one is under my paw." You resist the urge to laugh, mostly because it still hurts to move your face. After the ritual, she hands you a powder to mix with honey. It's a combination of dried mint, ground myrrh, and a hint of what you're fairly certain is powdered fish bone. Apply it to your gum before bed, she says, and avoid loud people. You're about to ask if that's part of the healing process, or just a personal boundary, but she's already turned back to her lotus jars. You leave the temple feeling not healed exactly, but somehow lighter. The ritual, the smells, the gentle chant, it soothes something deeper than the pain. You are still swollen, still uncomfortable, but there's a new kind of comfort. The comfort of being seen, of being treated as a whole person, rather than just an aching mouth. Later, while sitting under the shade of a fig tree, you mix the powder with a bit of honey and smear it on the sore tooth with a carved stick. It tastes oddly refreshing, minty, almost toothpaste adjacent. You wonder if this is what modern dentists would taste like if they came in incense form. That night, as you lie back on your mat, you find yourself thinking not just about your tooth, but about your body, about how everything in Egypt is connected. Your pain, your diet, your gods, your daily routine. There is no division between medicine and magic, between toothache and temple. There is only the moment, and in this moment, the pain has softened. Maybe it's the honey, maybe it's the fish bone, maybe Sekhmet's just in a good mood tonight. Section 5. The morning comes with a golden hush, the Nile mist curling lazily over the reeds like it's trying to sleep in. You sit up slowly, you probe the aching molar with your tongue and pause. It still hurts, yes, but it doesn't punch you with pain. It murmurs now, a quieter protest. Small victories. The amulet Henu gave you lies on your mat, beside your head, catching the first slant of sunlight. It's warm to the touch, though. Maybe that's just the heat of your own hopes. You tie it around your neck with a frayed cord. Whether or not the lion goddess chased away your tooth demon, it feels right to wear something that growls on your behalf. Today, you're curious about what happens to bad teeth in the long run, specifically after death. Egypt has always been obsessed with the afterlife. You know this. Everyone does. the entire kingdom. It sometimes seems exists to prepare its citizens for a better sequel. You've passed dozens of tomb paintings, shrines and scrolls, showing the dead smiling peacefully in the fields of reeds. But you've also heard whispers some people get buried with toothache charms, others with full sets of false teeth, shaped from ivory or wax. Why? It turns out the ancient Egyptians didn't just want to look good in the afterlife, they wanted to feel good too. Your body after death was expected to work. You'd need to eat, talk, smile, and if your molars weren't cooperating, that could become awkward. So embalmers sometimes went the extra mile. In a few well-preserved cases, archaeologists have found linen stuffed into jaws, apparently used to prop the mouth open and hide swollen gums. Some elite mummies show signs of crude dental surgery, drilled teeth, even splints fashioned from gold wire. Historians still debate whether these procedures were done while the patient was alive, ouch, or post-mortem as a kind of cosmetic fix for the afterlife. Either way, you get the message teeth mattered. You walk through the necropolis on the edge of town, past stone tombs and chipped statues, and you imagine your own afterlife dental scenario. Would Anubis inspect your gums before weighing your heart? Would Osiris peer down and say, could have flossed more? A nearby worker, one of the tomb builders, pauses to rub his own cheek. Too much beer, he mutters. You nod in solidarity. In a culture where immortality is built brick by brick, the smallest aches still matter. A single tooth decayed and ignored could spoil the perfect eternity. That's not superstition. That's awareness, something modern medicine sometimes forgets. The Egyptians understood that pain is a kind of memory. It lingers, it shapes you, even into the next world. You stop near an open tomb, one where a stoneworker is carefully chipping a scene into a wall. A woman is pictured grinding grain, smiling with unnaturally perfect teeth. It's likely aspirational, idealized. After all, no one wants to be remembered mid-wince. As you turn back toward the village, you pass a small shrine with offerings, onions, coins, a tiny carved jawbone made of soapstone. You make a quiet offering of your own, just a pinch of honey on a shard of bread. Not for a god necessarily, maybe for your future self. The one who'll wake up one day and forget there ever was pain here. That evening, back at home, your mother surprises you with a rare treat, dried figs, soaked in date wine. She means well, but you eye them suspiciously. Sticky, sweet, dangerous. You take a bite anyway, slowly, carefully. The flavor is intense, like sunlight caught in sugar. You chew on the other side of your mouth. Later, lying in the dusk again, you hold the amulet and think about legacy, not just in tombs or scrolls, but in how people remember their aches. You think about the moldy bread, the prayers, the frankincense, the sheer determination of a people who built pyramids and still struggled with the same dental pain you're facing now. And somehow, that makes you feel a little less alone. Section 6. The next morning is quiet. The kind of quiet where even the birds seem to whisper. You wake slowly, blinking against the sun creeping through the cracks in your wall. Your jaw is stiff, like it forgot how to behave during the night, but the sharp pain has faded into a dull memory. You sit up and reach for the pouch of honey mint paste Henu gave you. One more dab for good measure, you think, even though a part of you wants to believe you might not need it today. But you've learned better. Pain in ancient Egypt is like the Nile. It always comes back around eventually. While you apply the salve, your sister passes by the doorway, holding a bowl of something that smells sweet. Curious, you follow her to the small cooking hearth outside. She's grinding something into a fine powder with a polished stone. Honey and incense ash, she says, casually, like that's a perfectly normal thing to put in your mouth. You raise an eyebrow. It's for Uncle Mena, she adds. His gums are bleeding again. Ah, yes. Another patient. Apparently, there's a wave of sore teeth going around. Everyone seems to have their own family recipe, some kind of generational oral tradition, pun intended. You lean over to peek inside the bowl. The mixture looks vaguely like cake batter from a nightmare. Egyptians had no shortage of dental pastes, many of which are recorded in various medical papyri. Recipes often included mint, frankincense, iris petals, crushed salt, and sometimes, brace yourself, powdered ox hooves, because nothing says fresh breath like barnyard vibes. Historians still argue whether these mixtures were used more as perfumes or actual medicinal applications, but there's evidence that some combinations, especially those using mint and salt, could have mildly antiseptic effects. At the very least, they left your mouth feeling a bit less cursed. You offer to help your sister. She shows you how to fold the paste into linen strips and tie them into small plugs to be placed gently along the gum line. They're meant to sit there and slowly release their healing funk. It's fiddly work, but it makes your fingers forget the throbbing in your jaw. Later that day, Uncle Mena arrives. He's grumbling even before he sits down. His breath could knock over a camel, and his gums look like they've been through battle. You hand him the paste with a proud flourish. He squints at it, sniffs it, then shrugs. Better than beetles, he mutters. Wait, beetles. Apparently, at one point, someone in the village swore that grinding dried beetles into a powder and mixing them with palm oil could treat mouth infections. You're not entirely convinced this wasn't a prank, but in a world where crocodile dung was once recommended for sunburns, anything feels possible. While Mena dozes under a fig tree, with his herbal paste packed in tight, you sneak a peek at his teeth. They're worn down far more than your own, and dark around the roots. You can't help but wince. Pain like that builds up in layers, like silt in a canal, slowly, steadily, until it becomes part of the landscape. You spend the rest of the afternoon helping your mother boil linen strips in a clay pot to sanitize them, her way of mixing tradition with common sense. She's got her own theories about toothaches. Too much speaking, she says, poking you lightly on the temple. Your mouth gets tired. You chuckle even though it hurts. As the sun lowers and the day cools into its blue-gold hush, you find yourself back near the riverbank, watching water buffalo graze in the distance. The ache is manageable now, like a shadow rather than a weight. You think of all the strange remedies, moldy bread, powdered hooves, honey ash, and wonder which of them truly helped. Or maybe, just maybe, it was the act of care itself, the belief that something could be done. And as you watch the reeds ripple under the gentle evening wind, you begin to believe it too. Section 7. You sleep better that night. Not great, but better. No jolts of agony dragging you from dreams, no need to press your knuckles against your jaw like a makeshift brace. Just a dull hum behind your cheekbone, like a distant drumbeat you can almost ignore. By morning, you feel bold, or at least reckless enough to chew on the side of your mouth that's been off limits for days. You pick up a piece of soft lentil mash wrapped in bread and go for it. The pain flares, yes, but it doesn't explode. You grin half out of pride, half out of disbelief. Your recovery is slow, but it's real. And yet, you can't help but think about the strangest part of all this. It wasn't just the garlic salves, or the moldy bread, or the priestess with her Sekhmet amulet. It was that scroll, the one the scribe Chati showed you briefly before brushing it aside with a scoff. You remember the title now, The Book of Healing Mouths, by Banebjedet, a scroll so old, even the dust on it had dust. Chati called it superstitious nonsense, which of course made you want to read it immediately. So today, you go back. Chati is reclining with a bowl of pomegranate seeds, casually flipping through a scroll on tax collection. You wait until he finishes, and then politely, patiently ask to see the mouth scroll again. He rolls his eyes, but relents, pulling it from a stack like an old sandal you insist still fits. The writing is faded, but readable. You trace the ink with your finger. It's a mix of medical advice and, shall we say, bold creative writing. Remedies for aching jaws are listed beside spells to calm angry teeth and poetic invocations like, may the wind that dries the grain blow cool across this pain. One remedy catches your eye, a poultice of boiled figs and crushed dates wrapped in linen blessed by the moon. Another suggests soaking ground barley in Nile water left under a sycamore overnight, then applying the paste while humming the name of your mother 3 times. It's ridiculous. It's beautiful. It's weirdly comforting. You ask Chati about Banebjedet. He smirks. Old temple physician. Some say he treated the queen of the north. Others say he treated goats and just wrote beautifully. Historians still argue whether Banebjedet was real or a literary persona invented by scribes for fun or funding. His remedies straddle that blurry Egyptian line between science and magic, where figs and incantations are equally important. You copy a few lines into a scrap of papyrus to take home, not for practical use, just because they feel nice. Words can be healing too. That night, you try one of his rituals. You mash up a boiled fig and press it gently to your gum with a bit of warm linen. No mold this time, just soft sweetness and a faint fig scent that fills the room like a bedtime incense. As you lie back on your mat, staring at the ceiling beams above you, you whisper the lines again. Let the seed be soothed, the root be cooled, the jaw forget its ache. It's silly, sure, but as the linen warms and the taste of fig lingers in your mouth, you feel quiet. Not just your body, but something deeper, like the pain was a noise, and now it's been turned down. The Nile wind picks up again, slipping in through the cracks. You pull your blanket higher, tuck the amulet under your chin, and let your eyelids drift. And you think maybe healing isn't just about what's in the poultice. Maybe it's about being the kind of person who bothers to try it all. Section 8. The morning greets you with something strange. Silence in your mouth. Not just absence of pain, but absence of awareness. You blink, sit up, and do the ritual tongue poke along your gum line. Nothing bites back. No throb, no flare, no need to wince. For a moment, you forget which side the ache was even on. It's a strange kind of luxury, this freedom from pain. You stretch your arms, shuffle to the doorway, and for the first time in a week, you smile without fear. Your mother notices. So she says, handing you a bowl of soaked barley and leaks the fig spell worked. You shrug with a grin, or the moldy bread, or the garlic goo, or maybe Sekhmet finally got tired of hearing me complain. She smirks and turns back to her chores. Outside the village is Arshidi humming, men ferrying baskets of onions, children chasing goats, and somewhere beyond the temple walls, the priests are chanting to greet the sun. Just another day in Egypt. But for you, it feels like a turning point. You head back to the temple, not because the pain is back, but because curiosity is. You've become fascinated by how many people have their fingers in the pie of healing. Scribes, priestesses, old men with too many herbs, and even barbers with sharp knives and loose morals. But today, you want to see where it all starts. The temple clinic. It's tucked in a quiet courtyard behind the main prayer hall, shaded by fig trees and surrounded by low mud brick benches. The air smells like something boiling. You spot Henu again, gently sorting a bundle of dried plants, marjoram, myrrh, lotus stem, and something vaguely spicy. Next to her is a wooden box filled with tiny, carved figurines, hippopotamuses, crocodiles, birds. You ask about them. She explains they're part of healing rituals, not for physical use, but for symbolic ones. You pick up a tiny hippo with a missing foot. For healing broken bones, you ask. She shakes her head. For calming fear. Hippos protect, especially in water. Of course, because that makes perfect sense. In Egypt, animals aren't just beasts. They're metaphors, messengers, and sometimes literal stand-ins for gods. You notice a young man across the courtyard, head bowed, his hands cupping his jaw. His mother sits beside him, whispering to a clay figurine shaped like a jackal. They're not here for advice. They're here for comfort. It reminds you how medicine in this world is never one thing. It's care and charm, ritual and reality. A salve might do the trick, sure, but it helps if the salve smells like a blessing. Henu beckons you closer and shows you a passage in another scroll. This one from the Edwin Smith Papyrus, one of the more rational texts from Egypt's vast medical collection. It includes something quite rare, an actual anatomical observation about the jawbone, describing how pain in the mouth can spread to the ear and temple, which to you sounds oddly modern. She tells you something that sticks with you. When the gods gave pain, they also gave curiosity. Historians still debate whether temple healers like Henu truly understood infection or if they simply noticed patterns, but clearly they were watching, recording, adapting, even if they wrapped it in poetry. Later that afternoon, while sipping a light broth and mashing beans with your fingers, you hear laughter down by the canal. A boy has slipped into the muddy edge and emerged grinning with his 2 front teeth missing. Baby teeth. His mother shrieks, then laughs. A small ceremony begins. The lost teeth are tossed toward the Nile, so that Sobek may grant strong ones in return. You smile to yourself. Another kind of ritual, another kind of medicine. And when you lie down that evening, jaw relaxed, pain-forgotten amulet cool against your chest, you feel strangely grateful, not for the suffering, but for the story, for the layers, for the mold and figs and priestesses and hippos. Because here, even pain has a place in the sacred rhythm of things. Section 9. The next morning, you're not rushing for relief. You're stretching, yawning, rubbing the sleep from your eyes, and chewing without strategy. The ache that once claimed your attention like an impatient child is now an echo, faint, quiet, mostly forgotten. You sit by the doorway, sipping a clay cup of beer-thick porridge, and you begin to wonder, how did it get so bad in the first place? Not just your pain, but everyone's. Why is it that in a civilization so focused on harmony between gods, the Nile, the stars, everyone you know, has terrible teeth? The answer, as always, is bread. You decide to visit the market today, partly out of habit, partly out of suspicion. You want to see it again, the heart of Egyptian cuisine, the grinding stones, the coarse flour, the very thing that made your teeth what they are. The market is alive as always. Clay pots clink, chickens squawk. Traders holler with the melodic rhythm of people who've been selling the same thing for generations. You pass the spice seller. First he waves a pinch of anise under your nose. Then the fig vendor, today's batch, is slightly sun-wrinkled, the kind that'll stick to every crevice of your mouth. You keep walking. Near the center of the market is your target, the grinding station. Two women sit on mats beside a low stone quern. One woman pushes a large flat stone back and forth over a base packed with emmer wheat, grinding it into flour the color of desert dust. You watch closely, and there it is, the shimmer of fine grit, the tiny sparkles of quartz mica and sandstone. Bread in Egypt isn't just food. It's everywhere. It's currency. It's offering. Workers on royal tombs were paid in loaves. Priests were honored with pyramids of flatbread. Children chewed on bread crusts like teething toys, and every bite carried with it the ghost of sand. Historians still argue whether Egyptians tried to improve this grinding method or simply accepted its dental toll as the price of daily life. Some evidence suggests they occasionally sifted flour for the elite, but for most, grit was part of the deal. You remember a story Ketty told you? A royal steward once tried to have all his household's flour sifted 3 times. He was promptly mocked for being softer than a fig in flood season. You shake your head. The women keep grinding, stone against stone, dust against teeth. Later, you visit the baker's stall, rows of loaves, some flat, some puffy. Most somewhere in between are stacked on woven trays. One loaf catches your eye, burned on one side, cracked on the other. You can almost hear your molars screaming. Still, you buy one, not because you want to eat it, because you want to understand it. You break it open with your hands. The crust flakes, and the inside smells warm and sour. You rub the crumb between your fingers. It's coarse, gritty. You press it to your tongue, and yes, there it is, the sharpness. The crunch that isn't flour, isn't seed, but tiny stones, ground finer than reason. Bread built this civilization. It also broke its teeth. You think about the children chewing on loaves, the old men grumbling through suppers, the mummies found with infected jaws and ground down molars, and you realize that food and pain here are intimately connected, one woven into the other, like reeds into a basket. You walk home with the loaf under your arm and a deeper understanding in your bones. Healing doesn't always mean removing the cause. Sometimes it means learning how to live beside it, like sand between your toes. That evening, you toast a piece of the bread over the fire just to soften it. You chew slowly, carefully on the good side of your mouth. The flavor is sharp, earthy, not entirely pleasant, but somehow it comforts you, because now you know pain has history. And tonight, You're living proof of it. Section 10. It's a little cooler today. The morning breeze carries a hint of damp clay and lotus blossoms, and your joints creak less than usual as you stretch. But your mind, it's wide awake, curious, and strangely drawn toward the question that's been lurking at the edge of your thoughts. What about the rich? If the rest of you common folk are grinding your teeth down on pebble bread and praying to crocodile gods for mercy, what are the high-born elites doing for their molars? So today, you set your sights on the Palace District. Not that you're welcome there, of course, but your cousin knows a man whose brother sweeps floors for a physician who once treated a nobleman's hound. That's close enough. You make your way across the village past walls inscribed with prayers and find yourself among larger homes, more brick, less mud, with gardens where papyrus rustles in tidy rows and pomegranate trees lean over carefully arranged pools. You don't go in, but you don't need to. You hover near the kitchen quarter of a wealthy household where the servants are more likely to talk and less likely to throw you out. And sure enough, someone's grumbling about Lady Nebit's gold cap falling out again. You edge closer. A servant is kneading dough, muttering under her breath about a noblewoman's molar popping loose during a banquet. Your ears perk up. Gold cap. Turns out the elite had their own dental disasters, and naturally their own solutions. In some rare cases, wealthy Egyptians received early dental prosthetics, gold wire, wrapped around teeth to hold loose ones in place, and even stone or ivory pegs inserted where teeth had fallen out. Historians still debate how functional these solutions were. Some believe they were purely cosmetic, added after death to make the deceased look whole for eternity. Others argue they may have served as crude braces or splints during life. Either way, the rich clearly weren't spared from dental decay. In fact, in some ways, they may have had it worse. Their diets were richer in sweets, dates, honey cakes, imported fruits, and with access to softer to flour, their teeth wore down less, but rotted faster. A trade-off, you suppose? Would you rather lose a tooth to sand or to sugar? You managed to slip away with a few more juicy tidbits. Apparently, one nobleman had so many abscesses that his breath could dry figs at 10 paces. Harsh, but poetic. You remember the mummy of Ramesses Scut, one of Egypt's most celebrated pharaohs, whose preserved body shows severely worn teeth, multiple abscesses, and signs of gum disease. Even divine kings couldn't dodge the bite of time. Later, you sit beneath the shadow of a sycamore fig, thinking about this. The gold caps, the sugar, the pained grimace of a goddess statue in a noble's tomb, perhaps echoing some very real experiences. You pluck a date from a nearby basket and hold it up to the light. Soft, glistening, sticky. You hesitate before biting down. Your neighbor passes by laughing when she sees your face. Afraid of fruit now, she teases. Only when it's smiling back, you reply, popping the date into your good cheek. The sweetness is intense. It makes your eye twitch. That night, your thoughts linger on the shared ache of humanity. From pharaoh to farmer, the one thing you all have in common is that eventually something in your mouth will hurt. It might be sand, it might be honey, but it'll come for you. And even if you've got gold wire and a team of temple healers in the middle of the night, when the throb kicks in and sleep feels far away, you're just another soul trying to press a warm cloth to your jaw and whisper, "Please not tonight." Section 11. The next day begins with a riddle. What do gods have to do with gums? You've learned the scrolls. You've tried the salves. You've seen the moldy bread and the gold caps. But what you haven't really explored yet is the divine drama playing out behind the scenes of Egyptian medicine. Because in Egypt, pain, especially the mysterious nagging kind that festers in your mouth, is never just physical. It has meaning. It has personality. It might even have a name. You're back at the temple. Again, your feet seem to know the way by now. Today, you find yourself drawn to the outer courtyard of the Temple of Thoth, the god of wisdom, language, and oddly enough, moonlight and scribes. A young priest is watering a lotus bed and chanting softly, not noticing you at first. You wait respectfully until he looks up. You ask quietly if there are gods that help with pain, specifically tooth pain. He smiles, which seems like a good sign. You want to know which gods are listening? When your mouth screams, he asks, setting the water jar aside. You're in the right place. He invites you to sit beneath the columns where cool stone cushions the morning heat. There, he begins to explain a world where healing is storytelling and every ache is connected to the divine. For starters, there's Sekhmet, the lion-headed goddess you've met already. She's known for both destruction and healing. A wild paradox who could bring plague one moment and its cure the next. Many healing rituals invoke her name, not just for the body, but to soothe fevers-infected wounds, and yes, even sore jaws. Then there's Thoth, the patron of scribes, believed to have invented language, and possibly even the very first medical scrolls. Some healers whispered his name when mixing poultices, hoping the right words would carry the medicine deeper. But perhaps the oddest addition to the dental pantheon is Bes, the squat, lion-faced dwarf god of household protection, music, and childbirth. He's often depicted sticking out his tongue, which might be why people prayed to him when their own mouths refused to behave. He wasn't noble or refined, but Bes was fierce when it came to protecting the body from evil spirits' nightmares and apparently abscesses. The priest even tells you a myth, one not commonly written, but passed down in whispers. In it, Bes defeats a demon known only as the Jaw Thief, who crept into people's mouths while they slept and loosened their teeth with invisible tongs. Bes chased the demon off with cymbals shouting so loudly that the pain fled in fear. It's both absurd and strangely satisfying. Historians still argue whether these divine associations were metaphorical, a way to make pain feel manageable, or if Egyptians genuinely believed gods intervened in such personal afflictions. But one thing is clear: when your gums swelled, you didn't just reach for herbs. You lit incense. You recited hymns. You asked for mercy. The priest shows you a charm carved into ivory and tied with a reed cord. It bears a tiny image of Bes mid-grimace, tongue out and knees bent in a protective stance. Tie this above your bed, he says. It keeps bad dreams and bad teeth away. You thank him and tuck the charm into your tunic. As you walk home, the streets buzz with their usual rhythm. A donkey brays. Someone drops a clay bowl. A mother scolds a child for chewing too fast. You can't help but notice how every third person seems to rub their jaw as they talk. Maybe they're just being dramatic. Or maybe tooth pain is simply everywhere, eternal, as persistent as sand in your sandals. That night, you hang the Bes charm over your mat and lie back in the cooling air. You close your eyes and picture a tiny lion-faced god chasing away invisible demons with cymbals and shrill battle songs. You smile to yourself. You're not sure if you believe it, but then again, your tooth doesn't hurt tonight. And sometimes belief is the best medicine of all. Section 12. You wake in the dark. Not from pain, not from dreams, but from smell. Something thick, sharp, and a little alarming is drifting through your doorway. It smells like someone lit a pine cone on fire and buried it in fermented goat milk. You sit up blinking into the shadows and realize it's coming from your neighbor's courtyard. You pull on your linen wrap and pad outside. The stars are still fading the horizon, just beginning to warm with the pre-dawn blush. As you round the corner, you see it, a small clay stove pots, bubbling, and your neighbor's daughter crouched beside it, grinding something vigorously with a stone mortar. You ask cautiously what she's making. She wipes her brow, shrugs, and says, "A mouth balm. For my aunt's back tooth. It's cracked again." Curious now, and also morbidly fascinated by the smell, you ask what's in it. She starts listing ingredients, like a marketplace spell. Dried figs, fermented onion, powdered lizard tail, a little crushed mint, and most eyebrow-raising of all resin, scraped from temple incense burners. Oh, and honey to hold it all together. Naturally, you offer to help, and she accepts. As you stir the bubbling mixture with a stick that looks suspiciously like a reused hairpin, you can't help but marvel at how medicinal knowledge here isn't stored on shelves. It's cooked in courtyards. The ancient Egyptian pharmacy was everywhere. Markets sold more than just spices and food. Many stalls carried bundles of dried herbs, marjoram, chamomile, willow bark, henna, aloe vera, garlic, and a few more daring ones sold powders made from questionable origins, crushed beetles, burned bones, and yes, even bits of mummy flesh rumored to cure everything from seizures to joint pain. Historians still debate whether these more macabre ingredients were widely used or simply urban legend among Egyptian apothecaries. But there's no doubt about the demand. Pain was a part of life, and people would try just about anything to ease it. Your neighbor finally lifts the pot off the fire, lets it cool, and spoons the balm into a small jar carved from alabaster. She nods in approval, then dips a fingertip in and tastes it. You flinch. She shrugs. "If I'm putting it on my gums, I should know if it bites back." Respect. Later, you head into the market yourself now, bustling as Ra peaks fully above the eastern sky. The herbalist's stall is a marvel bundles, tied with flax twine powders in stoppered clay jars, labels scratched in shorthand on old pottery shards. You linger near the pestle and mortar station, where two assistants grind myrrh into something fine enough to smoke. The herbalist, an old woman with fingers stained dark from years of plant handling, tells you about one of her favorite painkillers, white poppy sap mixed with lettuce juice and dried in the sun until it forms a sticky black strip. It's chewed like resin, she explains to numb the jaw. But chew too long, she warns, and you'll sleep through the Nile flood. You chuckle, not entirely sure she's joking. As you leave, she hands you a tiny satchel of dried, prickly pear pulp and coriander seed, said to soften pain and invite pleasant thoughts. You tuck it away, thinking it'll make a fine evening brew. At home, you boil water, crumble a pinch of the mixture into it and let it steep. The smell is earthy and calming. As you sip, the bitterness fades into something almost sweet, like the air after a storm. You settle into bed, the best charm above you. Your jaw calm and quiet once more, you think of the strange potions, the sacred herbs, the old remedies passed from grandmother to child, neighbor to neighbor. Not all of it works. Some of it definitely shouldn't. But there's a comfort in the trying, because here, medicine isn't just a profession, it's a shared act of hope. A brew stirred slowly at dawn, a charm whispered beneath breath, a balm born from onion and lizard tail and love. Section 13. By now, your jaw has mostly quieted. There's still a faint tightness when you laugh too hard or chew something with too much enthusiasm, but it's no longer the center of your world. You no longer wake in dread or dream of rivers made of honey and salt. The ache is still there, but like an old neighbor who minds his business, you've learned to live beside it. And so naturally, your curiosity grows. If one little tooth can throw your whole body into a tailspin, what else might it be connected to? Could bad breath be more than just an insult? Could an aching molar signal something deeper? You decide to revisit Chati, the village scribe, not for treatment this time, but for stories. He's always buried in scrolls, and if anyone stumbled across strange theories or half-forgotten warnings about teeth, it's him. You find him lounging beneath a faded awning, chewing absently on a piece of papyrus, like a man who has long since made peace with splinters. When you ask about the connection between toothaches and illness, he chuckles and beckons you to sit. Then he unrolls a battered scroll from his personal collection. This, he says with dramatic flair, is not just a record, it's a warning. A whisper from the mouth to the mind. He reads aloud a section from the scroll, one attributed to an ancient healer priest named Marikare, who wrote of plagues that begin in the mouth. Fever, swelling, even madness, he claimed, could all start from a single infected tooth. You blink. That sounds a little dramatic, but modern eyes might agree. Historians still argue whether Egyptian physicians understood systemic infection the way we do now, but they certainly noticed the patterns. When the gums went bad, so did everything else. In fact, autopsies of mummies show extensive tooth abscesses, often deep enough to cause sepsis, the kind of slow, invisible death that creeps in from beneath your tongue. You think back to that nobleman with the fig-drying breath. Maybe he wasn't just unpleasant. Maybe he was slowly dying from an infection his body couldn't shake. And the scary part, no one knew. Because even though pain shouted, the cause remained hidden. Invisible, insidious. A toothache wasn't just a nuisance, it could be a silent herald of something worse. Chati shows you a side note scribbled into the margin of the scroll, possibly by another scribe long ago. One tooth may call the plague. Remove it quickly before it calls its brothers. The dramatic flair of that line makes you chuckle, but the meaning is clear. Ancient Egyptians understood that pain spreads, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, even socially. You stay a while longer listening to more stories. A merchant whose jaw rotted and left him mumbling riddles by the Nile. A young mother who believed a ghost had crept into her molars. A priest who fasted for a week to silence the biting spirit behind his eye. You leave Chati's hut with a head full of theories and a renewed sense of awe. Back home, as you prepare your evening brew, prickly pear and coriander, your new favorite, you sit by the window and watch the stars appear one by one, and you think about how delicate everything is, how a tooth no wider than a grain of barley can unmake your strength, your joy, your sleep, and how often we don't notice until the damage has begun. That night, wrapped in linen and dreams, you float in a soft half-sleep. The breeze smells faintly of burned incense and mint. Somewhere in your dream, a tiny voice echoes up from your jaw and says, "You'll listen to me next time." And you will. Section 14. You wake before the sun, not because of pain, but because your body's finally reset to the rhythm of the Nile. Up early, rest at noon. Sleep deep and early, like the temple statues at dusk. Today, you're not interested in more medicine or moldy bread or even herbal tea. You're interested in something weirder, specifically dreams. Because in Egypt, dreams aren't just nighttime stories, they're messages. And if you dream about your teeth, that's not just your subconscious grinding away. It's a sign, a signal, maybe even a warning from the divine. So you walk again to the temple, passing familiar faces, the baker with flour in his eyebrows, the potter humming to himself, a toddler waving a fishtail like a toy. Life goes on, rhythmic, familiar. But you're after the unusual. The dream interpreter lives near the edge of the sacred lake, a place reserved for quiet thought, ritual bathing, and conversations whispered between waking and sleep. She's older than anyone you know, with skin like sun-baked papyrus and eyes that blink slower than most people think. She listens to your dream about the tiny voice in your jaw, about your teeth falling out one by one like seeds from a pomegranate, and nods like she's heard it all before. You are holding back words, she says, voice dry as desert wind. When the mouth is troubled, it is not always the teeth. You blink. You didn't expect therapy, but she's not finished. She opens a small scroll, worn finger smudged, probably older than the basket you sleep in, and reads aloud a list of dream symbols. Losing a tooth apparently could mean you're afraid of change, or that a relative is keeping secrets, or perhaps most dramatically, that you're soon to receive a vision from Thoth himself. Historians still debate whether these interpretations were taken literally or served more as poetic tools for reflection. But one thing is clear: the Egyptians took their dreams as seriously as their bread, possibly more so. She gives you a small clay tablet with a carved glyph on it, a mouth inside a sun disk. It's meant to be placed under your pillow, she explains to invite clarity. You thank her and begin your walk home. The tablet feels warm in your palm, heavier than it looks. Maybe it's the weight of meaning. Maybe it's just sun-baked clay. Later, as you prepare your modest dinner lentils again, of course, you catch your reflection in the water jar. You smile gently and inspect your teeth. Still intact, still holding, still yours. But as you chew slowly on the softer side, you think about all the things that pass through this mouth: food, words, pain, prayers, secrets. What if your teeth weren't just bone? What if they were gates? That night you lie down early. The best charm swings gently in the breeze above your bed. The clay tablet rests under your reed mat. The room smells faintly of mint and soot. As your eyes close, you hear the distant sound of temple bells, just once, like a nod from the gods. And in your dream, a lion-faced figure taps your shoulder and says, "You've done well. Now hush." Section 15. You awaken to birdsong and the slow ripple of breeze through the papyrus thatch above your head. Your first instinct, out of habit, is to flex your jaw, testing listening. But this time, it's not to assess pain. It's curiosity. And the verdict is serenity. You sit up slowly, stretching your back and reach beneath your mat to touch the clay tablet, still there, cool now, having released whatever secrets it was holding. Whether your dreams last night were divine messages or just a well-earned rest, you're not sure. But you feel steadier, settled. Today, you do something bold, reckless even. You eat bread, real bread, no soaking, no scraping the soft middle out. Just one confident bite crunch, and all. And nothing. No sting, no wince. Just the taste of something earned. You sit with it, chewing slowly, reverently, not because of fear, but because you now understand exactly what went into that bite. The grinding stones, the dust, the ancient millennia of mouths that chewed the same coarse crust and bore the same consequences. Later, you stroll the village for the sheer pleasure of it. No reason, no errands, just walking as someone unburdened. You pass Tiati, who nods at you over his scroll. Pass Henu, who lifts her eyebrows when you flash her a very wide grin. And pass your neighbor's aunt, who's muttering to herself with a fresh garlic compress stuffed in her mouth. You give her a sympathetic smile. You've been there. You are there. Always. Because tooth pain in Egypt is never fully behind you. The grinding stones still spin. The market still sells dates sticky enough to pull a jaw out of socket. And you'll bite wrong on a fig pit, one day guaranteed. But now you're ready. You've got poultices and prayers. You've got scroll fragments tucked under your mat and mint paste in your pouch. You've got the confidence of someone who's seen the worst of it, endured the strange rituals, and come out smiling, if slightly crooked. You spend the afternoon near the canals, feet dangling in the cool water, watching fishermen cast nets, like their fathers and their fathers before them. Your mouth is calm, your belly full, and your mind drifts like a reed boat on glassy water. As the sun begins its descent, you head home. Your mat awaits cool linen stretched tight, a soft pillow stuffed with dry palm fiber. You light a small oil lamp not for light, but for rhythm. One final flicker to wind down the day. You lie back, arms crossed over your stomach, eyes blinking slower now, and you whisper to the silence, "Thank you for letting me chew again." Wind down final 300 words. Now, take a deep breath. Let the night settle around you like a linen shroud, light and warm. The Nile winds are calm tonight, rustling only the edges of the reeds. The same breeze that carried breath into temple halls now brushes across your cheek. Your jaw is quiet, your thoughts even quieter. Let your body sink, each limb a little heavier, your shoulders no longer holding the weight of ancient grinding stones, your chest rising and falling like the desert hills beyond the horizon. Your mouth rests in stillness, closed gently. No tension, no worry, no need to guard against pain. Picture the oil lamp beside you, its flame low flickering, then fading to a warm ember. Let your mind flicker too, dimming softly. The gods are not watching tonight. They're sleeping too. Even Sekhmet snores a little. Even Thoth closes his many books. Even the crocodile suns himself in dreams. And you, with your tooth intact, your breath steady, and your belly at peace. You're part of this rhythm. You belong here, in this quiet story, nestled deep in a world of ancient hush. Sleep now, traveler of the past. The sand will settle, the stars will hold, and if a fig pit finds you again tomorrow, Well, you know what to do.